What really happens when respect, legacy, and daytime TV collide? Two powerhouse voices, one studio. A conversation the internet swears went off the rails. Depending on which clip you watched, you either saw a masterclass in boundaries or an on-air spiral that left everyone stunned. And here's the twist. The most viral version of this story might not be the whole story at all. Chaka doesn't just arrive, she shifts the air. 5 decades of that unmistakable tone, songs that reprogrammed R&B and funk, and a long track record of saying exactly what she means. Across from her, Hudson, voiced like a siren, heart-on-sleeve presence, and a daytime platform that runs on joy and candor. Put them together, and the screen heats up before anyone even speaks. That's why this pairing mattered before a single question landed. Now, here's what the online buzz says set the stage. Chaka was there to elevate the work. New memoir, fresh shows, legacy highlights. Clean, focused, intentional. Rumors suggest there were guardrails. Skip the old pain, keep it on the music, center the craft, not the wounds. That isn't unusual. Artists with long, complicated histories draw lines, not to avoid truth, but to protect ownership. It's about dignity. It's about deciding how a lifetime gets framed. And it's absolutely in line with the way Chaka has defended her voice and vision since the beginning. Daytime TV, though, runs on warmth and revelation. Producers love turning moments into meaning. Those heart-open beats where a guest shares something real. Hosts walk a tightrope every afternoon. Ask honest questions without crossing the line. Invite depth without extraction. When it works, it's magic. When it misses, it becomes the only thing the audience remembers. This is where the narrative splits. Several viral uploads claim that questions drifted into deeply personal territory, the temperature dropped, and Chaka drew a hard line. Some titles even jumped to a walk-off. But here's the key. These are unverified clips and commentary posts, not confirmed breakdowns from official channels. Treat them as claims, not facts. They might be accurate, they might be sliced for drama, or they might be a game of telephone the internet plays better than anyone. Until something official surfaces, we're looking at a moving target. Still, there's a reason the story caught fire. Even without a confirmed walk-off, the larger question is real. Who owns a story and who gets to ask for it? If a legend says, "We're keeping it to the art today," is it a host's job to pivot or a host's calling to gently ask for more? Some critics argue celebrity-led talk shows sometimes blur empathy with extraction. Others counter that the genre is celebratory by design and leaves guests in control. The debate has been simmering for a while. This rumor just poured gasoline on it. Meanwhile, the momentum machine did what it does. Clips, captions, split-screen reaction takes. People hit play partly to see what allegedly happened, but mostly to pick a side. The problem? When a moment lives mostly in recaps and aggregates, clarity gets traded for clicks. Official highlight reels don't show a confirmed blow-up. Major press rundowns are quiet. That silence doesn't prove it didn't happen. It just means there's no high-confidence record the way there usually is when daytime TV truly explodes. So let's separate the knowables from the maybes. We know the show thrives on musical moments, audience feel-good energy, and guest-forward conversations. We know Chaka's legacy includes fierce creative control and boundary setting, documented, consistent, and core to her career identity. We don't know the exact back and forth of any tense exchange that day, whether there was an explicit off-limits list beyond the usual, or whether a segment was edited after filming. On those, we have chatter, not certainties. Why did the internet lock onto this? Because it feels bigger than one interview. Fans see two missions colliding. On one side, the belief that sharing hard chapters can help someone at home. On the other, the conviction that pain isn't public property. One says, "Your recovery might save a life." The other answers, "My recovery isn't your segment." Both are sincere. Both can be true. And between them sits the modern attention economy, where a vulnerable quote becomes instant content and a well-defended boundary can be spun as attitude. Let's slow this down without losing pace and look at the anatomy of a viral clash. First, you get a spark, a rumor of tension, a clipped exchange, a face that looks 10 degrees colder than a moment before. Then the algorithm reads it as hot, the clip goes wide. Commentators react to the clip, then others react to the reactions. By the time most people see it, it's a reaction to a rumor about a moment they never watched in full. Suddenly, everyone knows the story, but almost nobody knows the context. That's attention in 2025. Fast, sticky, and allergic to nuance. Now, zoom in on the word that lives at the center of this: Consent, not in the sensational sense, just the basic media version. Consent in storytelling means the guest chooses the lanes. Yes to the tour. Yes to the memoir. No to reopening old wounds. When a host hears that and accepts it, the conversation stays inside agreed walls. If a host hears that and still tries to nudge, kind tone, good intentions, the guest has the right to lock it down, pivot, or disengage. None of that makes anyone a villain. It just draws the map of who gets to steer. That's why the debate is so charged here. Because to some viewers, a host's job is to try, not to harass, not to pressure, but to kindly ask if there's room for a moment that might help someone watching. To other viewers, the guest's boundary isn't a suggestion, it's a contract. You don't try the latch to see if it's unlocked. You accept the no, you move on. You keep it about the art. And this is where legacies complicate everything. Chaka Khan has earned the right to decide which chapters live in public on any given day. That's not diva behavior. That's veteran survival. After 5 decades of headlines, misquotes, and clips ripped out of context, guarding your narrative isn't just wise, it's necessary. On the other side, Jennifer Hudson has built a brand on connection. Big-souled, listener-forward, bring the best out of people kind of connection. Her audience expects warmth, not gotcha. They also expect moments that feel real. That's a tension you can feel even when the conversation goes perfectly. Let's talk stakes. For Chaka, the risk is being reduced to a single storyline she never agreed to revisit. A lifetime of music eclipsed by a few minutes of, tell us about the hard part. For Jennifer, the risk is the perception that the show crossed a line, or conversely, that the show played it so safe, it lost the intimacy that makes daytime work. For fans, the stake is simpler. They want a story that feels true, not manufactured. They want to trust what they're watching. Now, say you're the producer in that headset. What do you do in a moment that suddenly goes ice cold? You have seconds to choose. Pivot cleanly, soften, and apologize on air. Or go to break and reset. Every choice communicates something. Pivot too quickly and it can look evasive. Push again and it can look aggressive. Break early and it fuels speculation that something dramatic just happened off camera. There's no painless option, especially when social media is ready to crown heroes and villains by the time you're back from commercials. Here's a detail most viewers never consider: editing ethics. Even on daytime, segments can be trimmed for pace or sensitivity. If a tense exchange happened but the guest asked for a cut, honoring that request is a quiet form of respect. But trims create vacuum. Vacuum invites rumors. Rumors bring in millions of eyeballs. And suddenly, the gentlest option, the one meant to de-escalate, looks like evidence of a cover-up to anyone who wanted a scandal in the first place. So where does that leave us? With a few solid truths and a handful of careful possibilities. Truth. A veteran artist's boundary is not a challenge. It's a line. Truth. A host's instinct to help someone at home can be genuine and still be a swing they shouldn't take that day. Truth. The most watchable stories are often the least complete ones. Possibility. A tense moment happened and was handled. Possibility. The moment was smaller than the thumbnails made it. Possibility. The real headline isn't a clash, but a reminder about consent and control. Let's also address the age and era subtext that always sneaks in. People love reading a generational drama into everything. Pioneer versus successor, old school versus new school, gatekeeper versus upstart. It makes the stakes feel Shakespearean. But framing it that way can be lazy. This isn't then versus now, it's story ownership versus story access, which affects everyone on camera today. If anything, legends and contemporary hosts are stuck in the same storm. A world that wants the most intimate detail, clipped to 30 seconds, captioned for outrage, ready to farm for engagement. And if you're wondering why this rumor stuck when so many others evaporate, here's your answer. It fits a template the internet already knows. Walk-off stories are sticky. They feel decisive. They don't require context. A door closes. Heels click. The headline writes itself. Whether the door actually closed or not becomes secondary to the feeling of a door wanting to close, of a guest choosing self-respect over spectacle. That's a narrative you can understand in one breath, share in one tap, and argue about for a week. But let's imagine the most generous version of this moment for a second. Imagine a host who misread the room, not out of malice, but out of hope that a carefully phrased question might produce light for someone at home. Imagine a guest who, feeling that old twinge of being cornered, chose to guard the story firmly, clearly, and without apology. If that's the truth, there are no villains here. There's a lesson. A reminder, impact doesn't erase agency. Good intentions don't override consent. And no is a complete sentence even when the cameras are rolling. Now flip it. Imagine the least generous version. A host pressing after a boundary was explicit. A guest feeling used? A segment cut to ribbons to hide the sting. If that's the reality, then the internet's verdict feels inevitable. The court of public opinion loves a clean grievance. And it will hand out a lifetime of retold remember whens based on a minute of television almost no one saw uncut. That's the power and the danger of modern myth-making. If you've made it this far, here's the practical takeaway. One you can apply far beyond this room, this show, these two artists. Respect isn't about how dramatic a moment feels. It's about who gets to own it. When an artist says, "My story lives in my book, on my stage, in my time," that's final. When a host hears that and chooses curiosity without insistence, that's what respect looks like in public. And when a viewer demands the rawest version without considering the human cost, that's when we all become the algorithm we love to blame. So, did a line get crossed? If you trust the rumor mill, yes, because any hint of pushing past a clearly drawn line is a breach. If you're waiting for verifiable receipts, the answer is more careful. Without official confirmation, we're left with a conversation about values rather than footage. Either way, the reason you're still thinking about this is simple. It's not just a story about two stars. It's a mirror held up to how we trade in other people's lives. It's a question we'll keep asking as long as cameras roll. What's the difference between connection and intrusion? Between a moment that heals and a moment that harvests? Here's where we land. If this alleged clash really happened, it wasn't just raised voices and icy stares. It was a referendum on consent in public storytelling, and who gets to decide which chapters are for the world and which are for the soul. And if it didn't, the rumor stuck because it names a tension we feel every day online. We want truth without trespass. We want closeness without cost. Your move. Was the internet too quick to crown a villain, or did a boundary get nudged for the sake of a headline? Drop your take below, keep it thoughtful, keep it human, and tell me which behind-the-scenes media myths you want unpacked next. I've got a list you won't see coming, and the next one peels back a curtain most shows keep tightly shut.